Welcome to the Book War. This is Hannah and Haddi Bergstrom, and we wanted to take a minute to kind of reintroduce ourselves to folks who we've gotten a couple of new followers over the last couple of weeks, and wanted to kind of just let folks know who we are, what we're doing, and why we would love to have you follow us on the Book War. So my name is Hannah, and I currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am a part-time pastor, full-time mom of twin boys, and born and raised in Iowa, along with my sister, and went to school there, moved up to the cities after college, and I've been up here ever since. I've moved around quite a bit, but have kind of settled in a middle-sized town called Farmington. So that's a little bit about me. Sis?
Yeah. So I'm Haddi. I also, of course, grew up in Iowa with my sister. But after going to college, also in Iowa, I then got transplanted to the East Coast in 2005. And I have been out here ever since. Currently live just north of Philadelphia. And I am an online instructor of theology for St. Catherine University, which, interestingly enough, is actually located in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
You know,
small world. Yeah, very small world. I went to undergraduate at University of Northern Iowa, and then I did graduate school out here on the East Coast at Villanova University. So our loves of reading, I feel like we should talk about our love of reading, Hannah. I'll throw it to you first, because this is sort of like how and the basis for like why we're even like trying to do something with books.
With books. Yeah. So I have always loved reading. Like, so this has been a lifelong, I don't know if you want to call it obsession. I think it's probably appropriate. Obsession / passion / hobby of mine. We grew up in a house full of books. Our dad is a self-proclaimed bibliophile. Our mother also reads a ton, but we grew up with books. We grew up with libraries. I remember when we lived in Burlington, Iowa, and we would walk like over 1.5 miles. I think it was probably like close to 2 miles downtown.
Yeah, it
to go to the library like almost at least once a week, all summer long.
All summer.
And it was just part of our life growing up. And it was something that I fell in love with really early on. Books, escapism, falling into new and different worlds. And it has morphed and changed a little bit over the years. But yeah, reading and books have been part of my life forever.
Yeah.
And you, sis?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and for me, I feel like I totally remember like going to the library in Burlington. And I feel like I should have known then, because even then when we were little kids, I always gravitated toward like the biographies. I always wanted to know about like people who were sort of like famous for this, that, or the other. I don't know why, but I should have sort of known then that I was gonna like study history and so on and so forth. But like my real sort of passion for reading didn't hit me, I don't think, until I went to grad school, which was like in my 30s. So I was sort of like on again, off again. I'll read a book here, read a book there for most of my life. But like once I got in my 30s, I went to grad school. I was studying history, and it's like we were reading a book a week for every class. And I found myself like actually loving it. Which, like, who loves homework and reading? Like, weirdo. I know. I'm like, okay, me and Hannah, that too. So anyway, that's really, though, for me, I think that was really when like this sort of this passion for reading and like wanting to sort of like pick up a book and find an interesting book. And for me, I do it for, I think, for two real reasons. Kind of like what Hannah was saying too. Like for me, I love reading stuff to be educated, to learn something new. So that's a lot of why I gravitate towards history stuff, because I feel like I'm always sort of like learning something new. And even when I'm reading like fiction, it's like I love the historical fiction, right? Because it's like I feel like I'm sort of like learning about people and places that, you know, I don't know about, even though it's like a fictionalized story of someone. So anyway, so I think we should probably talk about like why the heck we're doing this blog. Hannah.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead with that, since it kind of associates with what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So like for me, because I think when I went to grad school and I started sort of like learning that I actually really like to read, it became this like access point for me, because I was in grad school, I was learning, you know, history, but I was taking these classes on feminism and racism and a lot of these sort of like these social issues that our society is really like struggling with, and becoming really aware of the issues that most people in America are sort of facing on a daily basis, that maybe I had never had access to before. So for me, this blog, I hope becomes an access point, fingers crossed, that this blog can become an access point for others too, where it's like, you don't have to read all of these books because we want to read them. So let us read them and tell you which ones are sort of like worthwhile and which ones have content that is going to speak to you, depending on sort of like where you are on your own journey, but give people an access point, and then also maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, give people an opportunity to do a little self-reflection. Because I think for both Hannah and I, over the last decade or so, I think both of us have, because of our awareness of what's going on in our society right now, in terms of the social issues that people are facing, we've both had to do a lot of sort of like hardcore sort of self-reflection, especially on our own sort of complicity in systems that harm people. And so I hope that maybe this blog can be a little bit of that for some people who follow us, like us, listen to anything that we say. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. What about you, Hannah? Like, what are your sort of hopes and dreams for this hopes and dreams for this blog?
Hopes and dreams for our blog. I mean, I think I'm very much in the same vein as you, in terms of, I think in our 30s and now as we enter into our 40s, we realize the importance of sharing and being a place of bravery when it comes to some of these social issues, and acknowledging our own privilege, acknowledging racism, sexism, pushing against ideas and institutions that continue to perpetuate values around white supremacy and sexism and patriarchy and all of these other things, and the exploitation that we often see in so many parts of our world. And I think we both, in different ways, want to provide what you're saying, like that access, right? And that place of where somebody can maybe enter into that, just as maybe a more comfortable entry place, because people have to start those journeys on for themselves. And for me, and we've talked about this, and I've written about this, is one of the things is for me is around decolonizing our bookshelves, diversifying our bookshelves, like really pushing ourselves, particularly as white women, for me and you, and most in our audience is majority white, to really push ourselves to put and to read outside of this literary norm that we've grown up with, this literary classical norm of Western patriarchal society. And that doesn't just mean nonfiction, right? Like for me, and particularly just because I'm not quite the history buff that you are. So, and particularly for me, and that is really looking at fiction and science fiction and fantasy and even romance. I love great romance right now. And so I think really entering into those stories, not just out of the place of social justice, that place of like just fun and life and love and intriguing family dynamics and all of that same stuff. Those are all universal stories. And we have to renegotiate that within ourselves, because we've been told the white story is the universal. If it is, it's as universal as everything else.
As everybody else's. Yeah.
If it's not, then it's not universal, right? Like, and if nobody else's is, then ours isn't either. So I think really pushing ourselves internally to do that. And there's just great literature written by a ton of different people across countries, across the entire globe. There's just so much great stuff out there. And, we do read a lot. I want our blog to help curate some of that for other people, because we're nerds about it. And not everybody is. So I hope it inspires and maybe intrigues people to be like, okay, well, they both read that book from Iceland or Uganda or wherever, and it sounded interesting, so I'm going to try that one too. Or like, ooh, well, that one was like super popular, but they didn't like it, so maybe I'm gonna pass on that one and I'll pick something else. And so I think I'm helping curate and inspire people to just both continue to read if you are, maybe pick up something new, push outside your comfort zones. So yeah, those are kind of our hopes and dreams for the blog and what we're doing here. We would love for you to come along with us on the journey. There's lots of different ways for you to follow us. We are on Instagram at the Book War 2, as well as on Facebook at the Book War 2 we also have a YouTube channel, which is where you're finding this if you're watching it. And then so you can like and subscribe to any of that. And you also can go to thebookwar.com, which is our blog, and you can look at our blogs, you can look at our reviews, you can look at we have a bunch of book lists up there right now, as well as you can subscribe to our blog itself.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Till next time. Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.